Wayne, and thank you for joining us for our debate in Ward 20, Osgoode Ward. I'm going to introduce the candidates who are here for the debate in just a moment. But first, I'll quickly run through the rules of our debate today. Each candidate has been provided 1 minute to give you an opening statement. We drew the order for those opening statements just a few minutes ago. After we go through the opening statements, we'll move into a series of debates on the important topics in Osgoode Ward and throughout the city of Ottawa. In each case, I will start the debate with a question directed at one particular candidate. That candidate will have 45 seconds to answer that question on his or her own, and then we'll open it up to several minutes of debate from all the candidates on that topic. We'll move through a number of different topics that way, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements, and we'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. So let's meet the candidates who are running for your vote in Ward 20, Osgoode Ward. They are Mark Scharfe, Jay Tysick, George Darouze, and Kim Sheldrick. There is one other candidate on the ballot on October the 22nd, Auguste Benfalvi, who could not be with us for the debate today. So let's get started with the opening statements. We will begin with Mark Scharfe. You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mark Scharfe. After school, I started walking the beat, 1981, down on the market with the Ottawa Police. Spent almost 30 years with the police. My great-grandfather was born here 1848. We farmed the same piece of land since 1911. I've always kept the farm going, and this is what you get if you vote for Scharfe. We're going back to weekly garbage, no limit on the bags. We're going to cancel that ridiculous and costly green bin program. We're going to cancel the stormwater tax on property serviced with its own well and or septic system. There'll be no red light cameras, no photo radar in Osgoode Ward, and there'll be a ceiling on city staff not to exceed the wages paid to the mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Jay Tysick. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Jay Tysick, and I'm proud to be a candidate for Osgoode Ward Councillor. I'd like to thank Rogers and Mark Sutcliffe for hosting this debate. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up rural, and I'm a businessman and a father of 3. When my wife and I started growing our family, we wanted to move back into the rural areas and give them that quality of life that we grew up with. I think it's a really great quality of life, and it's built around community. So we got involved in the community, and what I've seen over the last few years is a real chipping away at our core services. We've lost our community police officer, we've lost our local ambulance, the snow plowing has been reduced, and infrastructure is crumbling. All at the same time, we're being asked to pay much more in taxes. We've had a new tax put on us just in the rurals alone, which amounts to double the tax increase that urban residents are paying. I find this unacceptable. I want to go be a strong voice to restore that rural quality of life that we know and love. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is George Darouze. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rogers and Mark Sutcliffe, for putting this debate for our community. It's very informative, and my name is George Darouze, and I'm running for re-election as your city councillor for Osgoode Ward 20. My wife, Sue, and I lived in Greeley for over 16 years, and it is where we chose to raise our 2 sons. Right away, I became involved in the community and many other organizations. Over the last 4 years, I've had the honor of being your councillor. Since then, our ward have seen more asphalt than ever. In this term alone, we have almost $10 million extra than the other term. That translates to 25% of our roadways. We also proven to fulfill our promises. We deliver funding to our youth, our seniors, and and our community safety. I promise to continue to improve ward infrastructures for maximum funding, as well as working with the transportation plan. Thank you.
All right, that's time. Thank you. Finally, Kim Sheldrick, you have 1 minute as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Kim Sheldrick, and I'm running for councillor in Osgoode Ward 20. My family's been here for a couple hundred years. I was born here, raised here, moved away from university, and came back here because this is where my home is, this is where my heart is, this is where the people that I know, the people that I admire are. If I come in as councillor, there's quite a few things that I'd like to work on. Roads is an obvious one. The stormwater fee is another. But I'd like to help preserve our rural way of life. I would like to help those who need the extra little bit of help, the seniors, those suffering from mental health issues, those suffering from addiction, those on social housing. We need to ensure that everybody has a safe home to go to that is clean and acceptable. We also need to make sure there's food security and financial stability for our residents, because if we have our residents taken care of, that'll help our ward and our city in general. Thanks.
All right, thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. We're going to move into some of the debates now, and I'll start with a question directed at Mark Scharfe. You'll have 45 seconds to respond to this question. Many residents have complained about speeding on Rideau Road. What steps can be taken to make the road safer, and why would you not see photo radar as part of the solution?
Well, first of all, I'm going to address photo radar and red light cameras. The way that system works is they take a picture of the license plate with no evidence whatsoever as to who's driving the car. It's no different than if you bought a knife at Walmart and through misadventure someone was murdered and the state comes in and charges and convicts you with the murder simply on the evidence that you own the knife. It's the same as the red light cameras, and I will not be supporting photo radar or red light cameras. The best way to deal with things like that is through community policing. Contact your officer, get the plate, and he'll get a hold of the owner and he'll look it up.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the subject of road safety, photo radar, everything to do with that. Go ahead.
What I'd be looking for is for people to help police their own communities. You need to make the right call. If you see someone speeding, if you see someone driving erratically, you need to make the right call to the police. It might not be 911, but there is a list out there. 613-236-1222 is the general line. You can call and make a report. You can go online and make a report. But we need to also police ourselves, because people are aware that they're speeding. People are aware of how they're driving. They have to make the conscious decision to make our own community safer. So between policing ourselves and having the police step in and patrol where the calls are coming from, that'll help take care of some of the speeding issues in our ward.
The fact is, we have too few police. Since 2012, there's been no increase in police that are patrolling of any note. And our population in that same time has grown by about 100,000 people. We have two new issues that we're dealing with that we didn't have to deal with before, which is the guns and gangs and the opioid crisis. So police that were previously patrolling rural areas are being pulled into the downtown core, and there's nothing replacing them. Even our community police officer is gone. They're now in Orleans, not in Osgoode. So we need people patrolling, driving around cops on the roads, because the fact is the people speeding, they're not bad people. They're just maybe being a little careless. They're not thinking about consequences, and they need that visual reminder. I think they'll self-govern themselves when they know there's a consequence that they could get caught, and we don't want the first time they think about those consequences to be when someone gets hurt. The answer is more police. I'll say to the red light camera and the speeding cameras, those do not work. The fact is all they can do is send a bill. If you have police there, not only are they moving around, because people will know where the cameras are and just slow down for them, but they can also respond to all the other issues. Crime is also up substantially in Osgoode, and police would solve both those problems.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but just to give you some information, that we never lost our community police officer. We still have our community police officer. Our OPS.
It's not really.
It isn't really. Our OPS changed their model of how they deliver services. So you know what? Our community officer really what it delivered to us is programs and resources, and we still do have this. If it serves us from Orleans or from Greeley, it doesn't make a difference where it is. Same way, you're not from our ward and you're running and you set the postal
code. You say it doesn't make a difference, but speeding is up and crime is up, so it does make a difference.
The Rideau issue
the proof is there.
The Rideau issue is separate from putting photo radar or speedboard. We are going to put speedboard. We also, the turning lane, they were not high, because of the road is in S shape. We are doing some modification. We're putting some extra light for the stop sign, red flashlight, and the chevron. We're also putting some new LED technology. So yes, I understand there is a lot of speeding everywhere in the world, but we do have a traffic calming measure, and we do have some resources we can do it without putting photo radar. Thank you.
The traffic calming measure of the speed boards, there was $40,000 given per year to every councillor to spend as they saw fit for traffic calming. But the fact is, the data of those speed boards, while they're a great start, they show that 70% of the people using our roads are still
and
speeding.
20%
So
of those,
that's,
20% of these,
we need
20%
enforcement. We need
reduced
enforcement.
on every speed board we put, it is available. The data is there. Every road, every time we put a speed board, you see between 15 and 20% reduced. 65% of the issue in Osgoode Ward, it's not speeding, it is distracted driving. And the numbers is there, and the police have a report.
Do the speed boards fix that?
Absolutely.
I think we need enforcement.
Well, we need enforcement. People have to make
Thank
the
you
right
for
call.
agreeing.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
And you know what? Also, just on the police topic, Ottawa Police right now, we changed the boundary. Instead of the boundary, it doesn't suck our resources into urban. Just so you know, our boundary right now, it used to be in Leitrim, and now it's pushed to Rideau. And our police officers, they used to be deployed from Orleans. Now they are deployed from Leitrim. And they use that Greeley Center every day. People drive in front of on Parkway, they'll see 2-3 police officers. So our police in rural area, despite that you're putting fear in our resident, that's wrong, and that's misconception.
Well, here's some facts.
Because
I spoke with the police. No, there are facts. At night, we often only have one car that patrols Ottawa South.
No, I'm sorry.
And yeah, no, this is fact. And Osgoode and rural Cumberland. This is from the police. I did check. I spoke to them. And there's only one cop at night, and often on busy nights, it will get pulled into.
There is not even one cop. There is always in one car. There is 2 cops in every area, and our rural well served by our community police officer. Not only the community, even our patrol.
Well,
we
have
less crime than anywhere else in the city of Ottawa. Our numbers
more than we had.
Look at. The city planners have approved thousands of houses at Finley Creek. That Rideau Road backs up to Doncaster every night at 5 o'clock. It's the same at Hawthorne and Leitrim. Whenever you approve thousands of houses, you have to expand the intersections to handle the volume of calls. And the people in Osgoode Ward are very good drivers, but when you sit in traffic for 10 minutes waiting to get through the intersection, they're frustrated, they're trying to get home or get to work or get the calls, and instead of expanding, for instance, the intersection of Hawthorne and Leitrim, George puts in a red light camera. It's ridiculous. It's just flashing away, tagging people for no reasons. We paid the city planner $250,000 last year, and this is the headaches we have. We have 3 of the biggest rock quarries in the city in that area. There's trucks coming and going steady. We have to have the infrastructure, the roads in place before these headaches are caused.
You're going to get the last 30 seconds on this, so I want to just give someone else a chance to speak quickly before we wrap up.
There is no red camera in Osgoode Ward. There is one at the boundary of our ward, which faces north on Leitrim and Hawthorne, just to put the record clear.
Mark Scharfe, I asked you the question, so you get the last 30 seconds here.
Well, I pretty well said the way that it should work. When the city planners approve these major subdivisions, don't expect those people to get on the bus. The one thing common, I rode the bus for years when I was walking the beat, one thing common to everyone that rides a bus is they hate it. It's because they don't have a car, they can't afford a car, that they're on the bus. So at the end of the day, we have to expand our intersections. You vote for Scharfe, that's what you're going to get.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Jay Tysick. Would you support a return to weekly garbage collection, particularly in the summer months? And what other changes or improvements would you make to garbage and recycling collection in Ottawa?
That's a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked it. That's a big part of my platform. We were kind of hobbled by the previous provincial government. We weren't allowed to explore new technologies. They were using failed 80s ideology, and when it wasn't working, they were forcing on us with legislation and tax dollars to try and get compliance. We need to move to incineration. We have a change in provincial government. It's much more open to exploring modern technologies. There is absolutely clean, efficient incineration that will turn the garbage into energy. And the fact is, we can throw everything into one bag. It'll be sorted at the facility instead of expecting residents to do that. This is environmentally friendly. It ends landfills. It has no emissions, and it'll allow us to provide energy to our residents. Thank you.
All right, it's open to everyone on the subject of garbage and recycling.
Okay. I have an issue with what Jay has said. There is evidence that incineration is not the clean answer to everything that everybody believes it is. There's been studies done. There are areas in the Scandinavian countries that there's a 3-kilometer radius around some of these incinerators where there's congenital abnormalities that are coming in not only humans but the animals. And there's also a change in the plant life, because there is the different type of ash. There's the fly ash, and then there's the effluents and anything going up the smokestacks.
They don't produce ash, the new clean incinerators. They capture everything.
Incineration or gasification, because there's a difference between the two.
I'm talking about incineration. They capture it all in glass. It's vitrified in the glass and it becomes a construction aggregate. There is nothing going out any smokestack. Only thing coming out is heat.
There is still some coming out through the smokestacks,
I've researched
and
it too.
the glass does still need to be taken care of, and it is usually highly toxic. Unless everything is sorted properly, there's a great amount of dioxins. There's also quite a few nanoparticles. They're not even regulated because they're too small to capture and too small to record. So incineration is possibly in the future, but more work needs to be done on it. I went to the Plasco prototype here in Ottawa twice, and while I do believe at some point it will be able to come up, not necessarily Plasco, but incineration or gasification. At this point, we're not at that. As for the green bin, we're paying for the contract for about 20 years anyways, so why not expand it? Get it to our multi-residential apartment buildings, get it to our businesses. Some schools are doing it. Expand our green bin program. Continue with our blue box. Continue with our black box. Keep garbage at bi-weekly pickup, but limit it the
All
way
the
the city
respect,
already
Kim.
has, because there is a limit, but it's not adhered to. And if
green bin
people are
contract
using their
is coming
properly,
up for review in this term. It's not that we have guaranteed another 20 years.
if the green bin is used properly, then there won't be the wet waste and the food waste going into the garbage. So people will not have the smell. It will be dry things in there, things that cannot be disposed of properly. So if used properly, the green bin, the black bin, and the blue bin, then trash can be limited and there'd be no worry about the animals getting into people's bags or the smells every 2 weeks.
I have a farm. I can't put this compost on the land because I don't know what's in it. People can put contaminants in it, and as a farmer, I'm responsible for your food health. So I'm not going to do it. And you look at other cities, Toronto, there was a bit of investigation. They got caught putting the compost back in the dump. How ridiculous is a program like that? A lot of people don't realize it. This year is a 100-year anniversary of when the women got the vote. I know who dumps the garbage in my house, and putting up with maggots. I got a call from one of the trailer parks last week. They're overrun with rats. This is ridiculous, this whole scenario. So I'm going back to garbage, weekly pickup, no limit on the bags. And if you're a new Canadian, my neighbor has about 10 people living in the house. There's a lot of garbage. We're going to help you out. It doesn't matter. And another thing I'm going to do is those guys that load the garbage, if you load 14 tons, you're going to get your standard wage. Every ton over to 20 ton, you're going to get a $10 bonus. And if you go over 20 ton, you're going to get a $20 bonus per ton, and it's going to apply to the driver and the guy loading at the back. And I know that's a left-wing position. I probably wouldn't be able to get a membership for the NDP, but that's what I'm going to do, because the people that do the heavy lifting in our community deserve to be respected.
We also have to be very responsible about our action. We have to be respectable for our environment and how we dispose our garbage. Yes, we have lots of work ahead of us in that file. There is a lots of technology that we use in Europe and we use in Durham and somewhere else. We need to make sure in our next step and our next time we choose what our going to be, how we're going to service our resident in Ottawa to look at this very deeply and to be very careful. Also, the green bin program in the last term was very hot subject because of the litigation. I'm very happy to say that we didn't cancel a contract that's going to cost the taxpayer lots of money, but there will be improvement for next summer and next year. You're going to be allowed to put your garbage, your plastic bag. So after you finish dinner, your turkey or your Thanksgiving dinner or any supper, put all the stuff back in the garbage, put them in the bag, tie them up, and put them in the green bin, and they'll be collected every week. We also allow now people to take their dog poop and put them in a bag and put them in the next year, in 2019, you'll be able to put a black black bag into your green bin and dispose all the stuff that bring you maggot. So that's a compromise. We don't have to go far right and we don't have to go far left, but we do have solution. But I do agree with lots of my opponent that in the next term we need to make sure when we have a new contract to look at responsible for our landfill and making sure we have a good technology and we have different way that doing the garbage.
I happen to bring the contract with me, and section 23.1 is the termination for the second term, and it specifically says that the city's sole
Mark,
discretion.
you want to cancel everything. You want to cancel the rain tax. You want to cancel the green bin. You want to cancel everything.
Notice,
I don't know how
terminate
you're
the
going to be able to do it. Your one
with no
vote at city council.
liability to the city whatsoever. So in 10 years, you vote for Scharfe, you're not going to have to put up with that green bin.
You vote for Scharfe and you go bankrupt in the city of Ottawa.
And with what Mark's saying, an unlimited amount of garbage that could go out weekly, nobody wants a landfill in their backyard. How many landfills are we going to have to open to accommodate unlimited garbage? No recycling, no yard waste. Everything goes into a landfill. It's just not feasible, it's not environmentally safe, it's not environmentally friendly, and it's not the way that the world is moving at this point in time.
Okay, we'll stop there. Jay Tysick, I asked you the question, so you get the last 30 seconds on this topic.
Thanks, Mark. The reality is, and it's not just with garbage, but with a lot of things the city's doing, they keep doing the same thing and hoping that throwing more money at it will make it work. They all say, we got to maintain what we're doing now, but find a way to make it work. Well, in the last almost 10 years, it hasn't worked. It's time to start going, okay, this is not working, let's find something new. The only thing that's on the market that is really viable is waste to energy, and there are great plants that have been functioning for a very long time, very cleanly and very efficiently. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question is for George Darouze. You voted in favor of a controversial new stormwater fee that another rural councillor was heavily critical of. Do you feel that you represented your constituents' wishes in that vote?
Yes, I did, and thank you for the question. Well, this was a long debate, and we went to public consultation, and I was opposing against it first. I came back to the table with an open mind because what we were taxed was going to be supposedly over $380 per house, per household. And then when there was a resistance from our rural councillor, we went out to the public, talked about them, and we came back to conclusion. We went back to discussion with our councillor because you only 4 vote as rural councillor. You want to make sure you bring something to your resident to be able to fight. Leadership is not voting against something and you know is going to lose. So we did the negotiation, and I think we delivered to our resident very good outcome and compromise.
It's open to everyone now on this topic.
I'd like to jump in here. The fact is, and one of the biggest issues is you did make a promise that you would vote against it, and then you voted for it. That is not representing.
The promise was made before even the city was even.
The second thing, the options on your table were not yes or no. You could have presented other options. The reason we have this rain tax is because of an improper allocation on budgets at the time of amalgamation. It was a difference between the rural area and the urban area.
It was
and when you noticed 20 years ago, or 20 years later,
it was explained to you more than
when
one
20
time,
years later,
time and time again,
you realized the error.
The
solution was to put it onto the right budget.
One at a time.
It wasn't to, yeah, I know exactly. You should have put it on the right budget.
You still don't
the city has an obligation to manage the water that sheds on its roads. It's part of the
All right,
roads.
I'm going to intervene. Nobody can
Mark.
hear either of you if you're both talking at the same time.
So I'll finish.
I will let
the
Jay
roads-
Tysick go first, and then George Darouze, you can respond.
Thanks, Mark. So the fact is, it was an error of allocation at amalgamation. They put it on the wrong budget. And then 20 years later, almost, they discover this problem, and the solution is to give us another 2.6% tax increase. When the fact is, the real solution, and the one you should have proposed, the one you should have talked to your council colleagues to get through, is just put it on the right budget. That would have been shared throughout the whole, it would have been a taxpayer-supported program on the operations budget where it belongs, not a ratepayer levy on just rural residents that gives us twice the tax, the property tax increase that urban residents pay.
You answered your own question.
And you didn't.
You said it's got.
You made a promise and you broke it.
You said I gave you. You said that we put it in the wrong budget. Yes, you're right. And they put it on the budget for people where they pay sewer and water. In rural Ottawa, we look after our own services. We pay for our own septic. We pay for our own water. The people who live in the city of Ottawa receive two bills, one from the taxes and one for their city and water. And your $42 million overall in the city and $8 million from the rural, for the rural infrastructure was going from that envelope. We have two choices: either take the money, either add it to the tax, or either do that or take it from road. Our road are deteriorated enough. We inherited bad road and we need to fix our road. We need to do investments. So we created a fee under the Provincial Act. If you put something as a fee, it doesn't go to general revenue. So every resident who pay rural water tax or stormwater tax, that to keep our road between point A and point B, for us to be able, those regional road, and we used to pay these taxes before amalgamation. We used to pay it for the RMOC,
and we
regional
also used
municipality,
to get good service before amalgamation.
And you're still getting your road paved, and you still have regional road paved, and we're still investing every dollar we can on our road. In fact, this year we have over 450 culverts been changed in Osgoode Ward. Half of those money was come from the people who pay sewer and water in the city of Ottawa. And I'm sorry to say that our road is not paved. Maybe you have. I don't blame you. You don't drive in our ward. You don't live in our ward. I encourage you to go drive around and see. We did
every day.
150 kilometers of road was paved in this term. Thank you.
So you made the point. You said every dollar that's available for infrastructure, we use for infrastructure. The federal gas tax allows us to use the money that's returned to us, that's paid by us, primarily rural residents, because we drive the most, we use the most gas. That's a fact. We pay the most into the gas tax. Excuse me, Mark. I'm going to finish this statement.
Sure.
Now, provincially, there's not much we do. Federally, the portion they give back to us allows us to use that for infrastructure, but to date, not $1 has been spent on our roads, has not served the people who have paid that gas tax. That's just a fact, George. So
okay,
not every
I'm
dollar
going to let other people get in on this discussion. Mark Scharfe, go ahead.
Okay, this is a very important, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a well and or your septic system, for 100 years, okay, your drainage is looked after under the Drainage Act of Ontario. It's one of those legislations that pulls in the municipal government to ensure that the drainage is looked after. The funding for the culverts that go under the road, I have the Drainage Act right here, and I want to read you it says the engineer shall provide for the construction, enlargement, or other improvement of bridges or culverts throughout the course of the drainage works rendered necessary by the drainage works crossing any public road or part thereof. If you have this system, this covers you. Just a minute, George. Sure. But the worst part about this whole scenario, ladies and gentlemen, is the Metcalfe Town Hall was packed from wall to wall with people. Down the stairs, some people couldn't even get in. And not one told George to go down to City Hall and vote for this stormwater tax. And he goes out the back door, runs down to City Hall and votes for it. Now, we all have it on our tax bill, and at the end of the day, if you vote for Scharfe, I'm cancelling it. I'm going to ask the mayor to reimburse you for that tax.
You know what? You're 100% about the act, and just so people will know, for the benefit of the people who's watching this debate, this is the Municipal Act, and this is not the stormwater tax that we're talking about. But that's a good information. But you know what? Yes, I could have voted against it, and yes, right now every resident in Osgoode Ward will be paying $380. Right now, our resident pay as a fee, and every dollar goes to
every. If you vote against it, how would it have changed the outcome?
Because you will not be able to get the votes on the table. I'm not just.
It had to be unanimous, or else we were all going to pay $300?
That's not it. You only have 4 rural council, and if you don't know how it works, maybe you should
I know
check
how it
your
works. I've been there longer than
and you were 5 years.
So if you voted no, we would have had to pay $300?
Well, if I say no, of course, because that's all rural. Because most urban and suburb, they won't. No, suburb and
you should just stuck with your promise.
Suburb and urban, they won't that
that's
tax.
time. George Darouze, I asked you the question. You get the final 30 seconds on this.
Thank you very much. You know what? This was very, very. It was debated to death. And you know what? I think when I met with my advisory committee in Osgoode Ward, I spoke to them and we negotiated very well for us to be able to get that vote on the table. Urban and suburb council, they'll be more than happy for us to be charged the full price, the $8 million. We were able to negotiate it, and we reduced the price, and we divided in 4 years. Our resident will pay $48 instead of $380, and I'm very proud of that.
Okay, let's move on to the next question, which I'll direct to Kim Sheldrick. So the city is about to undertake a ward boundary review in the next term of council. Some people would say it's not fair that Osgoode has fewer than 30,000 residents, while some other wards have more than 50,000. What changes would you make to the number and size of local wards, and what would you do to protect rural interests on city council?
Personally, I think we should have more rural wards. It's not necessarily the number of voters that you have, it's the areas, it's the number of businesses. They say, oh, Osgoode ward, they're rural people, they don't have a lot of businesses. You take every farmer that we have in this ward, that is an operation, that is a business, that keeps us going, that keeps our city going, that keeps our people fed. We cannot get through this without our farmers. Our tradespeople, they might not have an office downtown, they might not have an office at all, but they work out of our ward. So if I am voted in, then I would work to see about getting 2 more rural wards, and it doesn't matter about, you know, which has how much. There's the geography, there is the businesses, there's a lot more to consider than just the actual number of voters in a ward.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on not just the ward boundary review, but city governance and accountability.
Well, I kind of look at it from a different perspective because I serve already 4 years my constituents in the last term. And you know what, to my defense and my rural councillor defense, yes, we do have less resident than suburb and urban, but our services and what we deliver and how we impact our community is different than people in urban and suburb. Rural residents have we have a way massive land. So our geographically, for me, you can take the city of Montreal, put it inside Osgoode ward, and we're still 50 kilometers square bigger. The distance is it's wider. Our issues is different. Our ditch, our water, our road, our needs in our community is totally different than urban. I don't think if we make our councillors in the rural Ottawa less, we're going to have better service. And I think we should be very careful because the city of Ottawa unique. 80% of the city is rural, yet the 20% the population live in rural Ottawa. So rural Ottawa right now, it's not really underserved or overserved. I think the rural Ottawa should stay the way it is, and we cannot expand the boundary for the rural. We might be able to adjust or change boundary, or because right now I also go down on the north, I go down to Leitrim, and I go to east of Findlay Creek. Is this boundary need to be adjusted and my other boundary be reviewed? That's why we were doing this review in 2019. We'll be engaged, and we engage our community on public process, and we're making sure we get it right.
Well, if we want to talk about better governance, I mean, the fact is we couldn't reduce urban councillors even if we wanted to. That's already in the Act. But I think we do have too many councillors representing too few issues downtown. They all seem to be on the same page about everything, and we need to start getting rid of some of that dead weight. I would support that. I don't think changing the boundaries necessarily would do it. I think the city's growing into our ward, and we welcome that. That's fantastic. Development always brings good things, but it has to be done smartly, and that's why I think we need to start taking a proactive approach to how we develop. And one of the things that I've been campaigning about is community development plans, which allows the people of the community to decide what they want to see for themselves going forward. And it keeps out the bad development while inviting in and fast-tracking the good development that they've chosen for themselves. It also gives us a great business case to expand and upgrade our infrastructure in advance of that development. They're fantastic tools. That is something that we have not used. This council has not been proactive on a ton of issues. They just tend to coast, and that's a shame.
My opinion is different than George's. Is most platform planks are less politicians, the better. As of today, I see that Toronto is scaled down to the same amount of politicians as us, and if the Premier decides to cut us in half, I have no problems with that whatsoever. Save the taxpayer money, put the money back into your pocket, and let you look after it.
Agreed.
Anyone else on that? What about some issues around transparency and accountability? Are there other things that you think would improve the service that councillors and City Council generally provides to members of the public?
What I'd like to see is the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee be the traveling show again. It used to come out to all the committees. I know it was inconvenient with all the equipment that they needed, the microphones, the recording equipment, and to have the people travel. But having our voice heard in our own ward is very important. We don't want to have to travel to City Hall to hear an Agriculture and Rural Affairs meeting. We want to be able to speak in our own homes, have more of our people out, and have our voice heard even more. So that would be one thing that I would push to reinstitute out in this area.
Good point, Kim.
I have to disagree with Kim, and you know what? We've thought about it, and we've done lots of review on it, and we've talked with lots of community association and with our farmer and our rural resident. The decision made for us to move the Rural Affairs Committee to that, because we've heard from when we had the D55 issue, when you have an issue, it happened in West Carleton, always the meeting, it happened to be in Cumberland. And when we had the D55, it was mostly West Carleton issue. We had it in Osgoode, and people start saying, we're not being accountable, we're not being transparent. If the topic came for the subject, if it's West Carleton, we're taking it to Orleans, so the people will not be able to go. And we put it in the evening, so we don't get debate. We switch it to regular, like any other committee. If you have an interest in planning or you have an issue, I'm sure you can take time from your day and come down and listen to it. We did it, and instead of doing it in City Hall, we've done it at Center Point, which is at Ben Franklin. It's central to everybody in the city, and it's free parking, and we made it to making sure that everyone can come and participate, and we kept even the 5 minutes. That's the only committee that have an open mic at the end of the session of every committee. So we've done lots of work on that. Lots of people happy. I discussed it with our community, and I think it was a very good change and good decision.
There needs to be more public debate.
There's a lot of people that don't have internet, and you should be able to get any information with regards to the city from your councillor. I actually had to put George's record of the vote for the stormwater tax on the back of my brochure, because you just about have to be a criminal investigator to find it on the city website. So at the end of the day, I think that there should be 100% transparent delivery of any questions to the public.
Okay. Kim Sheldrick, I asked you the question. You get the last 30 seconds on this topic.
Okay. I have two comments. One, Jay said, yes, the city is moving out to his ward. It's moving out to Osgoode Ward too. We noticed that. We live here. We've been here forever. And against what George has said, I'm a working parent. I can't afford to take a full day off of work to travel to Ben Franklin Place or City Hall or whichever city building an IROC meeting is being held at. I can't justify taking a full day off of work to go in to have 5 minutes of say. No matter how important it is, I can't do that. There's just too much income lost.
All right, thank you. Let's move to the next question, which I'll direct to Mark Scharfe. Is the city and are the police ready for legalized cannabis, and what role should city government play in this significant transition?
From my travels in the community, I was out at speaking with the folks that were playing baseball last week down at Midcalf, and the community generally that I've spoke to, they're more concerned that the kids are not having access to it. So licensing like cigarettes, licensing like alcohol, that seems to be their main thrust. So at the end of the day, sure, the city's going to have to issue licenses to sell cannabis. Where it's going to go, we're just going to have to see. I'm a big promoter of town hall meetings. If it gets out of control, then it'll be my position. We'll have a town hall meeting, and we'll hear all the facts from the folks, and we'll make a decision.
Okay, it's open to everyone now, and remember, of course, the city does have a decision to make about whether to allow private cannabis stores in Ottawa, and the question obviously would be, should there be one in Osgoode Ward? Would you want that? So you're all open to some discussion on this.
We actually don't have an option about whether or not we want to allow them, even though the province has kicked that down to us. We've already seen in Supreme Court cases in the past that once a product is legal, we can't say, no, you can't sell it and you can't have it in the city grounds. We can only regulate how many of them and where they go. So we really need to look at that. I don't support them personally. Like I said, I'm a father. It's kind of, I don't like the fact that I'm trying to tell my kids not to do drugs, and we've got the government of Canada saying, hey, do drugs. I think it's wrong. And so I would not want to see them in the ward, absolutely. And I did hear last night at another debate some great ideas about how it should be distributed, and I think one of the interesting ones I heard was through pharmacies. Now, obviously, we haven't seen the legislation that's coming down from the province, so we don't know what's going to be asked of us at the city, so it's hard to really comment in any meaningful way at this point because we don't know the legislation that we're talking about. So this is just kind of guesswork we're all making. I just think the more we can keep it away from kids and those that maybe have addiction issues, the better.
We have to be very responsible, and I have to agree with some of the comments made this afternoon. This is a very important topic, and this is not only coming to City of Ottawa. This is coming across the board. But you know what? We have to wait on what the province is going to allow us to do. These are the regulations. They're going to come all in time for us to do. But in the city, we need to make sure that we pick and regulate it properly. Right now, the city asks staff to go back and look at different options and different model. But again, we cannot determine where the model, what we need, unless the province give us what they need to see in this deployment. But also, we need to make sure that it's not all in one area. We need to make sure it's balanced in the city. We need to make sure there is no access for our school close to schools or in subdivisions. We have lots of work ahead of us. We're going to go back to the public. We're going to talk with our communities. And you know what? The City of Ottawa is always leader in any legislation come down to the municipality. We don't run away from issue. We need to implement it. We need to implement it right. We need to implement it smart. We heard from our chief of police last week that the city is ready. I trust everything I have within our OPS, and I trust him if he said that the city is ready for it. Yes, there is going to be a growing learning curve. We're going to have a growing pain. We're going to have lots of issues, but working with our OPS, working with our...
The city asked the province for additional funds because it can't deal with what it already has going on. How are we ready to add more? That is just not the case. All due respect, that's just not true. We're not ready.
The city working with AMO, and we are really advocating for our new partner, the new provincial government, and they are ready to willing to work with us. This is a police matter. This is a funding issue. This is not your issue. This is something our city and the province
you brought in the police.
And they will be able to work with it. This is not only on the City of Ottawa. This is going to impact every community in Ontario and every community in Canada. So you know what? We will be working with our OPS, we'll be working with our provincial partner, and we're making sure we deliver a safe site, and we're making sure that these issues is being dealt with, and we keep our communities safe.
I would disagree somewhat with George. I don't believe we are completely ready. We don't have the full legislation provincially or federally yet. I would like to see Jay's source where he says the government is saying that we should all use cannabis. That's a new one to me. And considering the fact that I'm in addictions courses and work with people on the streets, work with people who have addiction issues, hearing that the government is pushing us towards use of cannabis, that's quite a surprise to me. And honestly, I offend many people whenever I say this, but the general public is uneducated about cannabis, whether it's CBD or whether it's THC, what they can buy, they can mix in it. If a child or teen wants to buy cannabis right now, they're going to have an easier time right now buying it than they will a month from now. A month from now, the quality will be regulated. We can ensure much better that there's not going to be fentanyl mixed in with it. There's not going to be carfentanil mixed in it. There's not going to be other things that could be harmful to the kids. They can get more education and get more information. This is good talk to have about people with cannabis issues, but honestly, just because it's legal on October 17th, I know I'm not personally going to go out that day and, oh, okay, it's legal now, I have to try it. And most of the people that I know are not going to either. It's not going to make a huge difference in the number of people using, but it is going to make a huge difference in regulating it, in making sure that we have a higher quality for those who do want to use it. Medicinal purposes aside, because this is recreational, not medicinal, there is a huge difference there. But the quality, the legislation is what we're waiting for. We can't just wait and see what happens, but we need more direction from our provincial and federal government on this.
Okay. Anyone else on that? All right. Mark Scharfe, I asked you the question, so we can go back to you and you can have the final 30 seconds on this.
I'm a strong supporter of any leadership capabilities at the municipality and your own business farm of being prepared. But I also don't want to put a lot of effort into something that may happen or might happen or whatever. I think we should just, it's a stimulant. They want to put it in food. They want to put it in the beer. They want to put it everywhere. I think we should just hold, take a look, see what happens, and then as the problems come down the pipe, we'll deal with them.
All right, thank you. The next question is for Jay Tysick. Where would you set the tax increases for the next 4 years, and how would you respond to some residents' concerns that there's too much pressure in areas like social services and infrastructure if we're going to keep tax increases low, that we're underspending in some of those areas?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the services we provide are actually becoming harder and harder to provide. Like the cost of providing the service, the cost of paving roads, everything continues to go up. And we try to keep doing the same amount of work with a less valued dollar against the work that has to be done. And we can't keep just doing the same thing over and over. This is not sustainable. It's just happening that we're barely holding on now. Our debt is increasing, our taxes are going up, and we're still providing less services. We need to look at the way we provide the services and absolutely start bringing in some new ideas, not just trying to hold together the status quo as it declines. You know, and I've seen nothing come out of this council that's very forward-thinking, nothing that's trying to address this issue proactively. Their only solution is taxes.
Okay. It's open to everyone now. You can keep going if you want, because this
Sure,
is
I'll
for
keep
everyone.
going. So, I mean, also where we allocate the tax money we have is just not ideal. We're saying 2%, which is fine. I mean, I get the mayor's promise, and it was a good promise. He wants to keep taxes low. But to say that then every budget in the city has to come in with only a 2% increase is wrong, because it prevents people from being able to address issues as they arise. For instance, the police. They have several new issues that they have to deal with that they didn't before, but they're capped with that same 2%. They should be getting more, while other services that don't need the money as badly are reducing. They maybe get 1% or even a small reduction. I think we're trying to do too much with too little. We need to focus back down on legitimate business of government, which would remove a lot of the expense that we pay. And I think overall we could get the tax rate down if we start looking at new solutions like incineration, which would return profit to the city instead of be a cost.
And you know what? In the last 4 years, we raised the taxes 2% year after year after year. And what this increase does to our department, we start looking into every department. So the city changed did lots of changes in the last term. We amalgamated 21 departments to 9 that make our we had a room for around 235 eliminate position, and we didn't cut service from the front line. The 2%, it's working. And we have so many people in our community have fixed income. They cannot afford 4 or 5 or 6% increase. We need to be fiscally responsible. We need to make sure look at every department. When you have a budget set at 2%, every household knows what the increase is going to be next year. And what this does to every department, they start looking within their department to making sure they're running efficient. When the pressure comes on from the top down, and every department needs to start looking on how we're spending money. We hear it all the time from the resident. You have 4 people doing this, you have 5 people doing this. You know what? The 2% is fiscal, it is affordable, it is with the inflation, and we're making sure that our core services is not cut. To the contrary, we're making sure we got more money on road. We have more money for our snow removal. We have more money for our paramedic. We hire 50 paramedic. We hire 50 paramedic in the last term and 10
but it was already being underfunded by way more than what was put in. And that's why in this term of council, you actually reduced the level of snow clearing to account for that deficit.
We didn't change the level.
Yeah,
actually, we have a better
No, it was 5 centimeters dispatch. Now it's 7. That's a reduction.
We had a better way on snow removal. And this term, our Committee of Transportation, we decided we're going to do revised plowing. And right now, we have pilot project in every ward. We do revised beat, and that pilot project, it's working very well. And this year we're going to expand it to different beats. So you know what? We are thinking better. We are looking better. And yes, when you have a pressure on the budget, people start doing things different, because people doing the same thing again and expect different result, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
So we need to be creative. We need to use our technology. We need to use our ideas. the things is working in the city, and I think 2% is very reasonable. And personally, we have a lot of seniors who live in our rural community. They want to stay at home and they don't want to move to the homes.
I will agree with George on this point. We have to be creative. If you elect Scharfe, I says, I'm going to cancel that grain bin. There's 10 million, okay, you're going to save in tipping, but it costs 28 million to pick up the cans. So this thing is costing 40 million a year. We're going to scrap that stormwater tax that George should not have voted for. He had no right to. And not only that, last year we gave the city manager $350,000 in wages. Think about that for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. We're paying him the same amount as a Supreme Court judge, and the bureaucrats down there are all taking advantage. We paid $300,000 to the police chief. The deputy chief got $272,000. We got the medical officer of health. We gave him $300,000 to tell us it's hard on our lungs to smoke dope, but come on down to the Sandy Hill Community Center and we'll give you some free needles to put heroin in your arms. We don't need to pay that kind of money for that kind of advice. So if we scale down on some of these ridiculous programs, you may even find, if you vote for Scharfe, that you got a reduction in your taxes. I can almost guarantee it.
Harm reduction is not a ridiculous program. Harm reduction does save lives. Yes, people say, oh, well, why don't you give needles to the people who are diabetic? That's a different fight. Harm reduction will save lives. I've seen it. You go downtown, you come and work on the streets for a day. You will notice a difference that this makes. People are going to these centers. It might be the only time that they see a doctor or a nurse, but they're able to get some treatment there. They might come in just thinking, okay, it's a clean place, I can go, I can get a clean needle. Oh, if I have a clean needle, I'm not going to get Hep C, and I'm not going to cost thousands of dollars to the health budget. I'm not going to get HIV, and I'm not going to have the government pay that much money to help cure or reduce the HIV. Because the big thing now is U equals U. Undetectable is untransmissible. So there are people who have been living with HIV for 30-some years now. Their viral loads are low enough that sexually they cannot pass the HIV virus on to someone. So we are making a difference with harm reduction. We are seeing less people die because of the drugs. And that goes along with the social service work that Mark had mentioned in the original question. We need to find efficiencies. Efficiencies is not just cutting staff. Efficiencies is things like inclusionary zoning, housing first, but not just housing, but supportive housing. You get someone off the street into a place of their own, you can see the difference in that person. A lot of times they want to give back. They want to get clean. They want to become part of the society that has cast them aside.
I want to make sure we have time for...
Okay, I just want to say in my last 20 seconds, okay, I worked every shift with these folks, and the thing that the reason they're in bad shape is they lose hope. And if they have hope and you can help them out that way, then they're not interested in sticking needles in their arms. That's what we have to do for those folks.
Harm reduction is caring and gives hope.
Jay Tysick, I asked you the question about city finances, so you get the last 30 seconds.
I notice a lot of the times at City Hall when contentious issues are brought forward, what the standard go-to move now is create a board, create a department to study it, to work on solutions and stuff. And it's really council avoiding its responsibility that's causing us to have a harder and harder time to provide all the service we need to do. Every issue, we create a new board, we create a new commission, we create a study, we pay money for. I mean, council just needs to do its job. They need to stand up, take a position, one that is in harmony with the residents, and then enact it, period.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the closing statements now. Once again, each candidate will have 1 minute to address you, the voters in Osgoode Ward, and we'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. So we will begin with Kim Sheldrick. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mark. Like I said, I'm a lifetime resident of Osgoode Ward. I'm related to half of the ward. That's the way things go where we live. But I'm here for the people. I'm here for the residents. Mainly for the residents of Osgoode Ward, but for the city in general. I, in some way, have worked with so many of you through scouting, through guiding, through the Legion, through the Lions, through the Women's Institute, through the 5 different school councils, through the 2 landfill committees that I'm on, through the 4 other environmental groups that are fighting these landfills. I'm involved extremely, lost my train of thought, apologies, but I'm very involved in my ward, and that is why I step forward, not for myself, but for our farmers, for our tradespeople, for our corner store owners, for the people who need a strong voice and someone who'll look at them as a person, not just what is their income, how much can we tax them, and what can we do to get more money to make the city better. It's for the people.
All right, thank you. Next up is George Darouze. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for hosting us this evening, this afternoon. In 2014, residents put their trust in me to deliver positive change, and we've done that. And I believe I also have done just that when we proved that we've done a lots of road and we've done a lots of infrastructure this term of council. We delivered 150 kilometers of road paved. We've delivered PXOs, community safeties. We work on paramedic. We hired 50 paramedic, and we also reduced the time of for our patient. We made sure that we have a community police officer. We make sure we have 85 new police to serve our community. Now I'm asking you to re-elect me on October 22nd. Remember George Darouze, and I will be able to deliver and keep my promises to strong and trusted rural voice at City Hall.
All right, thank you. Next is Jay Tysick. Go ahead, you have 1 minute as well.
Thank you, Mark. I'll reiterate. In the rural areas, we've been watching our core services get chipped away, and it's not a new thing. It's been happening since amalgamation. All the while, we're paying more and more tax. This council has been coasting. They've been doing the low-hanging fruit, least amount of work. There's been no initiative to change the way we do things. It's just trying to manage the status quo as it crumbles. We need some people in there with some new ideas, some people in there with passion, some people who think that their job is more about serving the residents and doing what's right by them than attending every party that's open and wearing costumes and taking selfies. There's a lot that can be done. We've got a lot of great ideas that we put forward, the CDPs, the new garbage, and I hope that you'll vote for me so that we can bring some of these into reality, and I thank you very much for your time tonight.
All right, thank you. Finally, Mark Scharfe, your closing statement, 1 minute as well. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm not going to take my last minute and tell you how great I am. I'm going to try and help you pick the best candidate out of this bunch. Unless you want higher taxes, more of taxes, and taxes that you don't owe, like the stormwater tax, scratch George off the list. A simple check at the municipal office on Searville Road. Take a look at the nomination papers. It says it's public information. You'll see Jay Tysick, he doesn't live on the ward, can't even vote for himself, so you may as well scratch him.
People.
And Jay, if you move into Osgoode Ward and I'm in charge, I won't charge you the stormwater tax. As far as Sheldrick, that family has very, very deep roots. She deserves credit. That family has put the roads there and the infrastructure there. But at the end of the day, there's one horse going to win this race, and we have serious issues coming down the pipe. So vote for a strong rural voice, vote for Scharfe.
All right. Thank you to all the candidates for being part of our debate on Rogers TV for Osgoode Ward. Best of luck in the rest of the campaign. I want to remind our viewers that Election Day is October the 22nd, and that night when the polls close at 8 o'clock, we will have live coverage of the results right here on Rogers TV and also on 1310 News Radio. Hope you can join us then for the results and some analysis of what it's going to mean for the next 4 years of your city government. Thanks for watching.